Hello, everyone, and welcome to Boston University's webinar, Serving on Nonprofit Boards. My name is Sarah, and I'll be moderating today's session alongside our team of instructors who are current board members across a variety of sectors. As we take a deeper look into nonprofit and for-profit board service from the inside out, as our title suggests, the overarching theme of today's session just reiterates how serving on a board will fulfill your personal and professional goals without compromising all your bandwidth. We'll also take time to address your questions throughout the session and at the end of the presentation. And today's webinar is being recorded, and a link will be sent to your email for your reference and to share with your colleagues. All right, I'd now like to introduce the Professional Fundraising Program Director and today's host, John Shafroth. As the current Director of Development and Strategic Initiatives at the Harvard Business School, John has spent many years in alumni engagement, annual funds, volunteer management, and major gifts, just to name a few of his key areas. And John did complete the BU fundraising program in 2007 and has been instructing for the past 13 years. So John, I'll now pass it over to you to lead our discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and welcome to everyone. I'm really excited about our opportunity for a panel today to learn, as Sarah mentioned, sort of from the inside out about serving on nonprofit boards. We have the great privilege of having three incredibly accomplished fundraisers who both are professionals and serve on boards. And so they can provide a perspective, for those of you who are looking to get on boards or looking to serve effectively. And I will say what's even more exciting about them is all three are instructors in the online certificate program here at BU. And so this is the quality and caliber of folks that I get to work with all the time and feel so blessed and love to teach and share their learnings with others. So I think we're going to start with a poll just to get a sense of who's in the room, the virtual room, and then I'm going to have our esteemed panel introduce themselves.
All right, great. So here I'll launch the poll question, so please just select one of the following. What is your day job? Professional fundraiser, other position in a nonprofit, I work for a for-profit company, or I'm not currently working. And we'll take just a minute for everyone to submit their answers. All right, looks like we have a majority of the responses in, so close the poll, and John, you can comment on the results.
Yeah, very interesting. We are mostly other positions in nonprofits, which is music to my ears, as the roles of board members and fundraising in a nonprofit is something that I think we all feel strongly about, sort of the responsibility of everyone in the organization. And so it's great to have folks here, whether you're looking to think about board management or being on boards yourselves. It's good to see that we're drawing from all parts of the organization. And then we have a nice healthy group of folks who are in the for-profit world. And it sounds like you're probably looking at sort of giving back and connecting with mission-based organizations to have an impact there as well, which is incredibly a great thing to do. Let's go to our next poll question.
Okay, so our next poll here, launching just a moment. What type of organization do you currently serve on the board of? Please select one of the following if you see it here: education, healthcare, arts and culture, other, or I do not currently serve on a nonprofit board. Okay, I'll close the poll and share results.
This is great. We have the right people in the room, a healthy group of not currently serving on a nonprofit board. So hopefully we can share with you some insights that can help you if that is what you're looking to do. Great to see arts and culture showing up strongly here, which is something that our instructors have some experience with, and education and healthcare, both with some folks as well. So helpful to get a sense of who's in the room. Thanks for helping us be a little bit participatory, and let's jump into it. Let us start with Kylie. Do you want to start? We'll go Kylie, Ellen, Kelly. just KEK. And if you could just share, your profession, what you do for the day job, and then any board service you would do as well.
Yeah, so Kylie Johnson, great to see you. I work for Bay State Health Foundation, which is a fundraising arm of a large healthcare system in Western Massachusetts with several community hospitals and 13,000 employees, and just an incredible place to be working. And the boards I serve on, I currently serve on the Estate Planning Council of Hampden County. So most recently I've been serving on professional boards. So the Estate Planning Council of Hampden County, which is a group of professional advisors, accountants, financial advisors, estate planning attorneys, gift planning specialists. And we put on a series of programming during the year. And I just came off of a 4-year term serving on the Plan Giving Group of New England board, which is also a professional board that does numerous programs, usually about 20 programs a year, educating the regional community in New England. And I've also served on boards such as Family Outreach of Amherst, which is a real fundraising board to support at-risk services for at-risk families in Amherst, Massachusetts, where I live, and the board of Montessori school where my kid went to school. So I have a perspective on nonprofit boards and the professional boards.
Thank you, Kylie. Ellen, you're up.
Yes, hi everyone, I'm Ellen Sullivan. I'm the Director of International Advancement at Phillips Academy, which is an independent school in Andover, Massachusetts. And before that I worked for Boston College and then for Harvard University for a number of years. I have served on lots of different boards, and actually as I pulled together the list, I realized it was more than I had recollected at first. So going back to the 1990s, I was on the board of Habitat for Humanity in Boston, and that is in fact how I got into fundraising, by wandering in the door and saying, do you need help with something? And the answer was, yeah, can you write grants? And I remember thinking, I have no idea what that is, but how hard could it be? So I said, yes, I can. And then I realized I would actually need some instruction. So I took a summer school course, and that led to me being the director of grant writing as a board member for 2 years for Habitat Boston. But I also served on the board of World Teach, which is a nonprofit founded by a Harvard undergraduate, Michael Kremer, who went on to become quite famous as an economist now at the University of Chicago. But he founded World Teach for young people who were college educated, who wished to bring education as they could to developing countries. And so it had branches all around the world in a number of countries. I was on the board of the New England Latin America Business Council, which no longer exists. I am currently on the board of South Africa Partners, which is a Boston-based nonprofit. And finally, I served on the board of CASE for 5 years. CASE is the Professional Association for Fundraisers in Education.
Thank you, Ellen. You've been busy. Sometimes it helps to write things down. You remember the things you've done. Kelly, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Rafferty. I'm the Executive Director of Philanthropy and Community Engagement for Solution Health and Elliott Health System here in Manchester, New Hampshire. And I work with our new fundraising program down at Southern New Hampshire Health in Nashua called Legacy Trust. I've been in healthcare philanthropy for almost 30 years. Full disclosure, I got to work with Kylie for a number of years at Bay State Health when I was the philanthropy officer for Bay State Franklin. My board service started many years ago. I was a board member for the Pioneer Valley Ballet in East Hampton, Massachusetts, before I moved to New Hampshire a few years ago. In my current role, I am actually the board liaison for our foundation board, the Mary and John Elliott Charitable Foundation, which is the fundraising arm of Elliott Health System. So I liaise with our entire board and also have the opportunity to strategically interface with the Elliott Health System board as well in my role, not only with the foundation, but with our community engagement work in the community. I am currently serving as a board member of the Greater Manchester Boys and Girls Club. Actually just recently joined that board. That is a working board, and serve on their Advancing Philanthropy Committee. I'm also a member of the board for Friends of Anya, which is a grief program here serving families in northern Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Again, a great organization started by the parents of a young girl who lost her sister very unexpectedly during her, I think she was 5 and Anya was 8 when she passed away. And these parents have grown this organization to serve the needs of grieving children, and it's incredible. So I'm very proud to be on their board as well. I also support many of our C-suite executives in how board service for healthcare organizations intersects with our community benefit work in the community. So I'm able to help them see how their board service really is impacting the health and well-being of our community as we address social determinants of health, not only the clinical care that we provide as well. So board service runs deep in my daily work here, and looking forward to talking with you more about it.
Thank you, Kelly, and everyone. So as I was thinking through this, I figured let's just start by cutting the chase. Let's start with what you think makes an effective board member. And everyone on the call, let's take notes. And let's start with Ellen, and then we'll go into some background from there. But let's get the headlines out on the table.
So what I think makes an effective board member. So actually, I want to answer a slightly different question, and I'm going to take the prerogative to do that. So I was thinking about the boards I served on and what I was able to bring or deliver to each one. And in each case, it was different. Sometimes it was knowledge of fundraising, of course, but sometimes it was deep connectivity to a community that was really important to establish credibility in. Sometimes it was connectivity to an academic institution or academic experts that I had sort of readily at hand because I worked in university settings. So I always think about when I'm asked to serve on a board, why do they want me? And instead of just wondering in my own little mind, why could it be that they want me? Could it be that they think I can deliver senior professors from Harvard? Or could it be that they think I actually have more connectivity in the education sector than I feel that I do? I ask them, why is it that you want me? And so if you're considering joining a board and you're invited to do so, you should hope that that board that's extending the invitation has a very clear and thoughtful rationale as to why it is that they want you. So maybe you have legal expertise that they feel that they are lacking. Or maybe it's an affordable housing organization and you have 27 years of understanding the ins and outs of affordable housing and legislation related to affordable housing. So I think a good board member is a person who asks, why is it that you want me? Without any sort of sense that they're going to be puffed up and inspired and made to feel really good about themselves, but rather to have a very clear-sighted understanding of what it is that they hope you will bring to their organization.
If I can
That's a great
jump
point.
in,
Yeah.
I think what is so important in what Ellen just said about that is, it really is about impact and helping to spread and share and connect the people in our community to the cause that this board is leading the way with. And I really get a sense of that as just being a new board member myself to the Boys and Girls Club in terms of what's their strategic vision, what is going to be so impactful. And I know that, bringing a skill set that maybe is something they didn't know that they needed, but now that you're there with the background you have, because connecting our board at the Boys and Girls Club to some of the key social determinants of health that are happening in and around the club in their neighborhood, around food insecurity, around childhood trauma, and being able to be a connector to that organization, to other experts, I think is something that's also really important when you're looking at board service and the expertise you bring.
No, that's great. And I might add, it might, for all of you, for us thinking about boards, also doing an inventory for yourself of where you think you can add value, so that when you hear what others' impression of you, you can sort of figure out if it resonates. It can also be a way, you know, Ellen, you sort of mentioned being approached by a board, which is a great position to be in. But for others, you know, trying to figure out, be proactive on trying to find boards that you'd like to build relationships with and hopefully serve on, understanding what your expertise and what you're comfortable doing can be really important. Kylie, anything you would add in here around effective board member?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really, to be an effective board member, as Kelly and Ellen said, it's knowing what are they hoping you're going to do, and is that something that interests you? And if it's something you do want to do, then showing up, you know, reviewing the material they send you beforehand. If they're asking you to weigh in on a document, or asking you, you know what your role is, and make sure that you're willing to do that work. I've been on boards, you know, that it was really clear, or they're asking that they really want me to fundraise for them. I personally don't want to fundraise in my free time. Can I help you with marketing? Can I help you with other connections? Can I help you with strategic planning? That's interesting to me, but I personally don't want to fundraise in my free time. So know where you're willing to spend your time, and that you're willing to do the work. So for PIGNY, you know, for professional boards, we run, you know, the Plan Giving Group in New England is all volunteer. So if you're going to be on that board, you're rolling up your work. Somebody's leading communication. Somebody's, I led programming for a year. Someone's helping. And so you're really in it, and you need to know, what's the time commitment? Are you willing to do it? Can you show up and be reliable? And if it's, the answer is, wow, at this time, I can't give in that way, or I don't have the time or something, then, you know, that's not the place. So I think it goes both ways, of the organization being really clear of what they want you to do, what they want you to give, what role you can fulfill, how much time you're putting into it. And then for you to say, wow, yeah, that's something exciting. That's something I can embrace. And obviously, as Kelly and Ellen said, if you're following your passions, that you really care about the cause, or you really like flexing this skill where you can advance programming, or help make connections to social determinants of health, or bring in an international perspective, Ellen, or whatever it is, that you know, feel good because you're stretching, you're getting a little bit of a stretch experience too, even as you're helping them expand their efforts. And so it can be a real win-win for everyone involved.
Yeah, so you just sort of bridged a little bit to my next question, because you got to sort of the expectations piece of it, which I think good organizations have set clear expectations of what their board members are doing. But I'd also, you know, as on this inside out theme, from the day jobs, how do your organizations identify people that they want to be on their boards? Give us a little bit of the inside track, and understanding, you know, different organizations do it differently, and all organizations in the nonprofit mission-based space are, you know, running on, you know, often tight budgets and all that sort of stuff. So we can't always do the best that we can, but give us a little insight into how you think about that, or how your organization.
So I can jump in here. So our board for the Mary and John Elliott Foundation recently grew. And for us, we have found, and many of my board members serve on other boards in the community, and we have found that our sweet spot is 12 to 15 members. And when we grew exponentially, we added 5 new board members over the last 2 years. What we looked at is, you know, we had some board members that rotated off because of their time, and, you know, needing to shift their time. But we also had a couple of board members that hadn't attended board meetings in a long time, not anything to do with COVID. So, we had a thoughtful conversation with them, and we're able to open up board seats. Fortunately, we're still engaged with those folks organizationally supporting Elliott Hospital. But what we looked for were a few things. One, we added a grateful patient to our board. He happened to have been our first community COVID patient from March 17th, 2020. He was on a ventilator for 17 days, and when he got well, he dedicated himself to supporting the staff of the Elliott. And this was an opportunity for him to give back, and he is an incredible board member. He is helping us grow our golf event. He is on a board recognition committee to thank staff, and has just dove right in. He also established a fund to support people with long haul COVID, helping them pay some bills, and that fund is established here at our foundation. So he is just the most amazing person to fill a board seat as a community member. We also really wanted to be able to tap into our banking community, and we added two very different board members from the banking industry, two very dynamically different jobs that they have. So there isn't a lot of overlap. One is more in venture capital type banking, and the other is in community banking. But one is a young professional, because we have a strategic focus to grow organizationally around connecting strategically to younger professionals. These are the folks who are making their own healthcare decisions now if they're a new professional and they're in their first job, or they might be in their 30s and they're having their first kid and they're going to be coming to the Elliott, to deliver their baby or for their pediatric care, their gynecological care. They're making their own healthcare decisions, and we want them to choose Elliott. But we want them to understand what is it we're doing in our community to impact the wellness of our community. And some of them, in their late 30s, early 40s, it depends on, I'm 50, so I don't see myself as a young professional anymore, but people in their 40s do. They might be making healthcare decisions for their parents. So it's really a strategic focus for us, and adding Elliott to our board has been really great in giving us that perspective. So, we were thinking about a broad dynamic. We added somebody who has skills in marketing, and she has been incredibly helpful as well. But we're also thinking about our board does serve as a potential feeder for the Elliott Health System board. So what our vice chair is going to be moving up to chair. He now will serve on the Elliott Health System board when he becomes chair. So we're also really helping to think strategically, organizationally, as we're looking at who is adding to the board. In my experience as a board member, we've had a long-standing partnership as a hospital with the Boys and Girls Club in community partnerships. So they reached out to me, which was great because I really believe in their mission. Friends of Anya I was a volunteer there, and they, see the strengths that I have. Like Kylie was saying, I can't do fundraising in the community for these organizations because I'm fundraising for the Elliott. And they're very clear on that, but I can guide them on strategy. I can give them ideas. And I personally support these organizations. So, that was a great thing for me to looking at my board service, how I came to be on those boards, but what I look for in our board members.
I think that's a great point. I just would underline for people as you're talking to someone about being on a board, do I feel some sort of strategic direction you're working on? I mean, the boards of organizations are meant to be representative of the organization, both in the groups they serve, as well as the groups that are part of their community in many different ways. So that can always be a nice question. Ellen, do you want to jump in and add something?
Sure. I think, as has been said, many of my board experiences emerged from volunteer experiences. So I'll give you one example. World Teach, which I mentioned, supports recent college graduates from the US who seek to have meaningful experiences as teachers in developing countries. I had done something quite similar through Boston College. So for 2 years after college, I was a volunteer teacher in Central America in a really small country called Belize. And it was a wonderful program, but there was no guidebook at all. And every single day for 2 years, my colleagues and I, other 22-year-olds, were figuring it out every single day. And when I got back to Boston and I realized there was this organization called World Teach that did something really similar, but had really thoughtful preparatory materials for the people who were going to be going to serve in Costa Rica or Namibia or Ecuador or Peru, I thought, wow, that's fantastic. I wonder if my experience can contribute in any way and if I could get involved. So I showed up in their door as a volunteer. And I said, look, I didn't do your program. I did a similar program, but I know what the experience is. And if there's any way I can be involved. And they said, perfect timing. We're updating our volunteer guides. You've just been a volunteer, even though it's not with our organization. You could read this with a critical eye and you could offer some insights. And so my first responsibility for World Teach was to take their volunteer guide for Costa Rica. And I had never been to Costa Rica at that time, but like Belize is quite close. And I sort of read through it with the eye of, I just went through this experience for 2 years. What would have been helpful for me to know before I went? And so it was, for me, it was like a profoundly meaningful way to sort of transition back to life in the US as I was looking for my first professional job. And it led to many really wonderful years of serving on the board and volunteering with the organization.
And so for people looking to get involved, I mean, showing up at the door, that is something I always learn from Ellen. But also often it's for your volunteers. You sort of go through getting to know you process with the organization. And board service can be something that comes from being a committed volunteer. Kylie, would you add anything? Can I ask you, so again, give us the insight. So what does a board member do at your organization? What would they expect that they're involved with in a year?
Is that for Kylie or for anyone?
Kylie, do you want to give a shot at that?
Sure. I mean, I think it goes back to what's the real purpose of your board, and is it really focus on fundraising, which our board is at Bay State Health Foundation. So we really want people who, as Kelly had said, who are members of different constituent groups and can help represent, share the perspective of that constituent group, and help us understand that perspective and help make connections. Our board members don't necessarily go out and make asks themselves, but they help engage people, help inspire people, help us know, how best to connect, how best to reach out. As Kelly and Ellen are sharing, there's boards that need you to do other things to help move forward strategic initiatives, to help. We have a campaign committee right now for quiet phase of a project we're working on, and they're really helping us get ducks in order and looking at material and looking at strategy and thinking through things. So it's a different focus. So it really depends what is the primary goal and what roles can people play on those boards.
I think fair, and these are good questions to ask as you're approaching an organization or an organization approaching you. You'll have meetings. Nowadays they're on Zoom often, but not always. And that might be an interesting thing to evaluate your service on. You'll get to know the leadership of the organization. Sometimes there's subcommittees that, as Kylie mentioned. Ellen, what else would you say is sort of a little bit on the day-to-day of what a board member might do?
Before I answer, I paused when I heard, I think it was Kelly mentioned a working board. She distinguished a board as being a working board. And I thought, have I ever been on a non-working board? What would that be like? And then I thought maybe that's like a rubber stamp board, like you just sort of sagely offer your advice and nod and give a thumbs up or thumbs down. I've never been on that board. So every board I've ever been on is sort of roll up your sleeves, get involved, plan the agenda, recruit the speaker, pick up the finance minister of Brazil in your Honda Civic. Yes, I did that at the airport. All of those things. So I think actually pausing for a second on working board and what that really means. I mean, as I said, every board I've been on, and they've all been in health and education, have really been working boards. It never occurred to me to distinguish working as a board. But you know, we've really been involved in doing everything. The board that I'm on now for South Africa Partners, I've actually been functioning as the development person for 3 years. Not because I was so desperate to fundraise in my free time, but because they really needed someone. And I thought it's ridiculous for them to pay what essentially would be like a large portion of the budget for someone else to do what I actually know how to do. So I'm doing sort of the bare minimum by sending out an annual appeal. I design it myself with a photograph from our colleagues in South Africa. It's not fabulous. It's like a check or maybe a check minus, but it gets the job done. And I've done that for 3 years, and I do it because that is what they need from me. And let's not beat around the bush. That is one of the reasons why I was asked to serve on this board, because of my knowledge of fundraising. And it's what I can deliver. And it's hard for anyone else on that board who are lawyers and medical professionals. They don't know how to do what we do every day. So that's been my contribution for that board.
Thanks, Let me also just, if folks want to put questions in the chat, you're welcome to as well as we go on. Kelly.
Yeah, and I'll jump in terms of the differentiation of a working board. So our foundation board, they meet 4 times a year formally, and we report up the outcomes of our meetings to the Elliott Health System board. They do review finances, and we do have a nominating committee, but generally speaking, we don't have any other committees within this. They do vote on any bylaw changes. They have a vote that they take annually, because we oversee a fund that is a competitive grant. So they set what the spending limit will be within the construct of our spending policy. So we review that with finance. They are a working board in that they help us to thank our donors. They are sponsors, and they all donate. They attend our events. They help us open doors. But when I look at my role on the Boys and Girls Club board, for example, I serve on a committee. We meet monthly. We are reviewing finances. We are voting on strategic directions, formally voting on those. So there are definitely boards that are more advisory related and ours is within the construct of an entire health system and ultimately reports up to our health system board, which is a working board. So that is the difference, you know, in terms of some of those. And I've had the opportunity back in Western Mass where, you know, the boards were more advisory, just within the construct of the organization. So I think that's important, and it is really important to understand and ask, you know, what the time commitment is. One of the other things that I think is paramount for people to know is that especially when you're applying for grants, different funders are asking what percentage of your board gives. And when grants are scored, that can bring you down if board members are not giving to your organization. For us, you know, it's, you know, because we're serving a very wide variety of people in our community, and our board reflects that oftentimes. It's not how much they give, it's that they give. So I think that that is something that's really important. It shows the staff, the clients of the organization, the community, but it shows other funders the level of commitment that your board has. And, you know, I'm in a great opportunity that not only here at the Mary and John Elliott Foundation, but at the Elliott Health System Board, 100% of our senior level executives and both boards give. And I think that's something that's really important.
Yeah. And, you know, I would add to that of working board or not working board, and Kelly, that's a very impressive statistic, is that you have to think of these just the way that all of you who are really good fundraisers, right? Everything is about relationships. So you can have 4 board meetings a year, but if that's the only time you're engaging your board member, is not going to be enough, right? So
Agreed.
you sit down with the chair of your plan giving committee and you sound out the agenda, even if you know the agenda, even if you know all the material, it's all set, right? The best way to engage people is get their buy-in, have them look at it, listen to what they're saying, you know, so it's not one and done, great, we have these board meetings. It's this person adds value. So what is a thoughtful way I can engage them to help them become more invested or help get other people excited? You know, we're doing behind the scenes tours of our ORs now. And, you know, it's reaching out to board members. Do you want to come? Do you have somebody you want to invite to? If you're on a professional board, it's, wait, I have so many friends that, you know, that I now count as friends that are people I met through boards, either a working board here or the ones back in Virginia I didn't mention, or professional boards, because you take time to reach out between meetings, right? You still have to do the work, whether you're serving on the board or you're helping manage a board, to build those connections to other players on the team or to the board members themselves, because that relationship, that's where the work really happens. And that's where you get that follow-up and you get that juice and sizzle and magic that makes the rest of your work happen.
And if I can jump in, I'm absolutely, two stories jumped immediately to mind as Kylie was talking. First, we were having a tour with a major national level foundation of our new cancer center during our campaign. And we had board members attend and talk about their personal experience with cancer services. They were willing to share, but talk about their board service. And at the end of that tour, and this doesn't happen very often, you know, we were going to apply for one amount and they told us, we can't guarantee this, but apply for a higher amount. We got the higher amount. Another example is we have been stewarding two very key relationships of business owners and people who live in our community. And it is the connection on tours, on ask visits, and just having a cup of coffee with our hospital president, where board members are engaged in this. And it has enabled us to take a donor who had given, you know, $100 on a memorial gift to now being over $1 million donor, and another large scale strategic partnership as well. Again, you know, that's, you know, incredible growth. But it's also about, you know, our board members, you know, making thank you calls to donors who are giving $100 and have done so for the last 10 years to the hospital. And coming when we're presenting grateful patient inspired giving plaques in our hospital to our providers. So board engagement is, you know, really the thing that helps us grow.
And I think one of the, so you guys are touching on, but I just want to put an underline under it. One of the things that can sometimes be intimidating is this idea around giving in board service. And so I hope what people are hearing is, one, that participating in doing something often will ask for a personal significance. If that's going to be something that makes you uncomfortable, have that conversation right up front. Let them know, like, you care deeply about the organization. This is what is possible from your circumstances, and sort of take that, you know, off the table as something that's could potentially be a stumbling block. But I'd also say, and, you know, a little plug for the program that we'll tell you a little bit at the end, you know, the journey of what building a relationship with a fundraising ends as the outcome is long and deep. And there are so many ways that you all have just, you talked about, that an individual on board can actually be part of the fundraising process and not even know they are. You know, everyone sort of thinks it's, I have to call all my friends and ask them for X amount of money. And there's so many, so many more sophisticated and complex ways to do that, which I think can be meaningful. I feel like I would be derelict. I want to go quickly around the room on how board members can best work with paid staff. Give like one thing you wish a board member would know. And let's start with Ellen.
I think one thing I wish board members would know is you will never understand the amount of work that the staff is doing in the name of the organization. You will never be able to fathom all the tiny little details that the staff is managing, and sometimes making it look really easy. So take time to thank and appreciate the staff.
Kylie.
Gosh, it's tough. I mean, just, you know, to just do what you say you're going to do. Make sure you did your due diligence when you're joining it, and, you know, show up. If you're going to be on a board, really be on that board, engage, make connections, show up to meetings, ask questions. You know, really, you're going to get the most out of it if you really serve and you really put in the time, make the connections, engage, that you're going to make a difference for the organization, and you're going to make a personal difference for yourself. So that we have people in every community who serve on 6 boards at a time, and that's wonderful. Maybe they can devote that much time to every single board, or maybe it's you can be on 1 or 2 at a time, or just 1, to really do it fully. But the more you put into it, as with everything in life, right? The more you give and put into something, the more you're going to get back. So I approach it that way. And thanking the staff is a good one too, Ellen.
Yeah.
How about you, Kelly?
Absolutely. In addition to those important comments, it's really important for board members to share their why. Why are they involved? Why is this mission important? Why do I want to ask you to get involved with this organization? And share their why in their circles of influence and support. Share it on social media, share it in a blog, but share your why. Because at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, philanthropy is all about relationships and storytelling. And board members sharing their why is very impactful.
I'm going to add my personal one, that understand the there my computer system. Understand the staffing of your organization, and how many people are actually working, and when you have a new idea, come at it with the excitements and exuberance that you feel about that new idea, but also be open to the fact that it will need to fit into other work that's going on in strategic planning and you know all the work that they're doing, and that the staff at the organization are never wanting to extinguish your excitement, but we are often in the position where we have to negotiate differently. Okay, so I think we're at about time. Any final thoughts anyone would want to share that they didn't get out there but would feel badly if this great group didn't get to hear them?
I do have something. I want to amplify Kelly and Kylie's remarks about the importance of board members giving, not only because you're going to be evaluated on it by prospective funders, but I think something important to remember, there is a dignity in being able to give. There is a dignity to that. So when I was on the board of Habitat for Humanity, it's a Christian organization. We had a number of pastors. These are not wealthy people. They're working in inner city communities. But it was they who reminded me there is a dignity conferred to them by their board service. And they were not able to give large gifts, and no one asked them to give large gifts. We asked them to give something. And so we all think, you know, we get something for our birthday from our parents or our siblings, our nieces and nephews. You know, if you're on a board and you really feel like you can't do anything, then tell the people in your life, don't give me a gift, but just make a modest contribution to this organization in my name, because I'm serving on this board and I understand the philosophy of give or get. And in you channeling my $15 birthday gift to the organization, that's my get. And there's a dignity for me in knowing that I conferred that.
John, it looks like there's a question about many smaller nonprofits struggle to keep their board members engaged and involved. what keeps you motivated about serving on the boards you serve? I'll jump in and answer that, and then I know Kylie had one more thing. For me, it's the connection to the mission. Yesterday, when I went to our AP committee at the Boys and Girls Club, I walked in as the kids were getting ready to get on the bus to go to school because they start their day there. And it is exuberant. And as our CEO of the Boys and Girls Club say, it is organized chaos. And when you get to go in there and you see these kids, but moreover, you know what that staff did to get food to those kids when the schools were closed during COVID, how dedicated they are, what camp means to these kids. And then on Friends of Anya, to know that there's a 6-year-old boy who had a place to talk about his mom's breast cancer death. And we had 2 boys, 4 and 6, who lost their 12-year-old brother to suicide. And Friends of Anya was helping not only these children, but their mom navigate just an overwhelming incident in their family and this overwhelming sense of grief. And to see those boys at the end of their winter session with a little more light in their eye, that's why I'm a board member.
Thanks, Kelly. Kelly, do you have a final thought?
Yeah, I have 2 things. One, in terms of keeping motivated but serving on a board, I think, you know, from the staff side, it's, you know, keeping people connected. So if you're actively reaching out, you have the board meeting, but you reach back out, hey, thank you for your comment. You know, I really appreciate that you stood up and said this, or you made this contribution. You know, we can make people feel motivated serving on the board because we follow up in some personal way and let them know we heard them, they made an impact. That human to human connection, relationships are at the heart of it. And people are motivated by those kind of connections, feeling their time's valued and that they're heard. And then in terms of the larger question of what's your last thing, I would say test drive. You don't have to jump into board service. You can, if you have an organization you're interested in and you're thinking about getting involved, you can go to their events, but go to their events looking at, what roles are board members playing? Is that something I would want to do? You can sign up to get their mailings. You can kind of see, you know, you make a donation. Oh, did the board chair, you know, sign that donation letter? So you don't have to jump on board service right away. You can just pick the organizations that interest you and find ways to kind of shadow or participate or raise your hand to volunteer. You know, I got involved on the Pygmy board because I raised my hand to volunteer in a smaller way and got to know board members and got to know the work. So when I was asked to go on the board, I knew what it was about and what was expected. So you can test drive. You don't have to jump full force in. You can find a way to start getting involved and sounding it out for you.
I like that a lot. I like that concept. We'll test drive. So thank you, Kylie, Ellen, Kelly. Appreciate your taking the time today and your insights into this work. I know this has been a valuable time together, and I will turn it to Sarah.
All right, thank you everyone, and thank you for your insights, as John said, and thoughtful advice, you know, considering board membership. Now we'll transition for those who are interested in learning from our expert instructors and maybe more of an online classroom setting. Let's just dive into a high-level overview of BU's Professional Fundraising Certificate Program, some course logistics, and the enrollment process for our upcoming session. So John, I'll turn it over to you here just to kind of go through the modules and you know what one can sort of expect in that setting. So one moment.
Great, thank you, Sarah. So just pulling on, you know, what we mentioned before, the breadth of what happens within fundraising for mission-based organizations is really quite significant. And so for many, whether you're looking to be on a board or be a professional fundraiser, this can be incredibly valuable in building a toolkit for how to do a lot of the fundraising best practice that organizations need. I'm always reminded that organizations can have a great mission, but if they don't have any funding or ability to execute on that mission, it is really hard for them to do that. The program here at BU is 12 weeks. It's asynchronous, meaning you can do it at the rate at which you would like. We do have live classrooms that are also recorded, so there is an opportunity to participate with our incredible instructors as well as your peers, and many discussion boards and opportunities to provide feedback and get to know folks. As you can see here, it goes, again, over 12 weeks, covers, I'm not going to read each one, but covers the whole spectrum of the advancement shop. And again, a great fit for people looking to advance their career in fundraising, change from one position to another in fundraising, get into the field, and increasingly, why we're doing the session today, for board members or other volunteers who want to learn about fundraising. And then, I would just add program logistics, you can take a look, but what's really wonderful about this program is all based on in practice. Our instructors are all professional fundraisers who share their knowledge of what they do on a day-to-day basis. And the work of the course, both the knowledge learning as well as the assignments, reflections, and discussions are all meant to be based on work that you would actually do within an organization. And we've had many members of the program actually build programs for organizations that they work at or volunteer for through those assignments. So it's very practical based program as well.
All right, great. I'll take it over from here. Thanks, John. So just some course schedule information here. So our program is offered 3 times a year. So that's every January, May, and September. So our spring session is coming up on January 17th, and the enrollment deadline for that is January 6th. The tuition for the program is listed there, $2,495. We do run frequent promotions as well throughout the year on the tuition. And that's for the full 12 weeks. And just additional information pertaining to the program and the course modules can be certainly found on our website at onlineprofundraising.bu.edu. And if there's any questions just pertaining to the program or the enrollment process, we do have a wonderful team of advisors that are happy to help and can be contacted at the information displayed on the screen there. Email, phone, and website are there. There's also live chat on the website that is answered throughout the day. And questions. So if there's any questions that folks did not get the chance to ask during the panel, we can certainly address them now. I know there's a couple that have come in just while we were going through the logistics. So with the panelists we have here, why don't I just read a few off in the few minutes that we have left here. So the next one here is from Jamie. So how hard is it to get grants for funds for your nonprofit? Where do we look? And whoever wants to jump in on that.
That's a big question. Maybe I'll ask one of my panelists just to give a very short answer to that. That is something you will definitely learn in this program.
For sure, I'll jump in. What's really important is knowing where potential funds for your mission can come from. One thing that I find really helpful here in New Hampshire is we have an organization called the New Hampshire Center for Nonprofits. They post regularly locally based foundations that have grant applications. There's also, you can go on Foundation Search as well. So becoming a member of Foundation Search is another great opportunity. It's a bear. Grant writing is, and if you have the opportunity to get consulting dollars to hire a local grant writer, they may have other doors to help you get into.
So I think there's a couple of program logistics questions in there as well.
Yes, so the next question here, can you pay for the funding course in month installments? Absolutely. So you'll see on our website, we do offer payment plans. It starts off at 4 months, and as we get closer to the enrollment deadline, goes down to 3, 2, and then it's pay in full at that point. So as we're in December for the next upcoming intake, there is no more payment plans at this time. But certainly as we start the next cycle, it will start off with a 4-month payment plan for that. And the next question here about promotions, is there a promotion now? Unfortunately, not right now, but we do frequently run $250 off the price of tuition, sometimes $500 off. So it's just kind of sporadic throughout the year. So certainly if that's something that you would be interested in taking advantage of, just keep an eye out for our promotional emails and certainly what's listed on the website as well. And one other question that had come through or that we have here. So it seems that, being on the board of directors can sometimes feel like, it's a full-time job for some folks. So how does one sort of manage their day job and all the responsibilities associated with board service? Is sort of a final closing comment. Whoever wants to take it. Oh, did
Ellen,
we
you
lose
want to
John?
jump in? Nope, we just lost John.
Sure, I would say if you're worried about not having sufficient time to commit, then certainly only commit to one organization and really try to clarify what it is that they would like you to deliver. And maybe what they need you to do is meet with their marketing person once a month to offer feedback. Or maybe they need you 4 times a year to visit the community sites where they're working. Find out what specifically it is and make sure you feel that you can do that in the sort of free time that you have allocated before you take on much more.
I would agree with that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, so that does bring us, doesn't look like there's any other questions that have come in, so that does bring us to the close of our presentation today. And thank you both, Ellen and Kylie, for joining. And I know we just lost John, but thank you for him moderating the session. And thank you all for joining our session today. And we hope that this information that was presented and the advice from our panelists will help influence your current or future position serving on the organizations that you care about the most in board service. So I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the day, and we'll talk soon.
Happy holidays, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, thank you.